Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here, joined as always by Nick Sutherland from Myndfit. Nico, how are you, mate?
I'm feeling less battered than the last podcast because I've just had a hot chocolate.
A hot chocolate. Look, I've got a dirty iced coffee here, and I'm loving every minute of it. My treat to myself. Nico, we are not alone today. We have a guest on that I'm very, very excited to talk about. My old Facebook friend, Aaron Shultz from the Outback Mind. Nico, do you want to introduce him and let me know how you guys connected and why we've got him on here today?
Yeah, well, it's the universe working in its mysterious ways. So, obviously, Em and I have a property up at Agnes Water that we're going to run retreats from and whatnot. And so I was on the Agnes Water Facebook group and came across this men's circle and saw this bloke Aaron running it, and so I sort of did a bit of creepy stalking on Aaron and saw, oh, we have a mutual friend in common, Ryan Hassan, and I'm like, well, bugger me. And then so I got in touch with Aaron. We were heading up the property, got to sit in on a men's circle, got to spend some time with him, have a chat, and just loved the vibe, loved the genuine stuff, loved what he's doing, loved where he's come from, and I was lucky enough to be a guest on his podcast, the Outback Mind, and so it was a no-brainer to get him on our podcast.
Aaron, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's really interesting that you're both drinking shit, and I had watermelon for breakfast.
Yeah,
it's all good. But I had a hot chocolate yesterday, so that's all right.
How is he, Has?
I refuse to feel guilty for drinking my coffee.
Yeah, first opportunity. Bang, he's gone right, left, and
I dig that. I like that.
Got both of you as well because you just exposed it, so that's all right.
Yeah,
it's come out the gate swinging.
Why a watermelon juice for breakfast for you, Aaron?
Well, watermelon digests quicker than any other product. It takes 10 minutes to go through the body. The last few days I've been away doing stuff, and I didn't really eat bad, but just my body just didn't need anything that it was going to work hard to deal with. So I got a nice organic watermelon from the mate out the road and had that, and my body said, yep, thank you very much. So that's what I've done so far, and I'm just trying to wrestle with my ego and what I'm going to have for the rest of the day.
What's your ego say?
Probably have rolled oats and pizza later, but my body's saying maybe just have watermelon for the day and give us a break.
Oh wow!
I did a few weeks ago sit down with Aaron for dinner, and we did demolish a pizza, and then some samosas and a 6-pack of beer and whatever. So
that's my kind of dinner.
Exactly. So it's good to do that sometimes as well.
It was socially healthy for us to do that.
I'm going through this thing at the minute, Aaron. I'd love to get your thoughts. You know, I'm 38 tomorrow. I know I look 25, but look, it's in all honesty, I'm 38 tomorrow.
But you're younger than 25. That's all right.
Oh, bro, thank you. Favorite guest so far. I've been going through this thing the last few months where I'm just naturally. You might think, oh, you're having a fucking iced coffee. What are you talking about? But I'm eating and drinking a lot less than I have throughout, most of my life in these last few months. And it's been through no conscious effort. I actually went through a bit of a health concern. I have Crohn's disease, which is fairly well managed, but seems to be 3 to 5 years, I have a flare up. And I had this big flare up and a bleed, and I lost quite a bit of blood. And in the past, I've gone to hospital and had a blood transfusion and normally end up with other infections and stuff. This time, I actually couldn't get an ambulance to the hospital. So I kind of rode it out at home and the bleeding stopped.
When was this?
A couple of months ago. Did I tell you about this or not?
No.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I was passing out. I normally get to the point where I'm passing out due to a lack of blood, and then I go get a blood transfusion. That's what's happened in past. But this time I called the ambulance and they're like, it's going to be 45 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll just wait. And then after half an hour, they call back and go, look, we're not going to be able to get you one for hours. And so I just rode it out and the bleeding stopped. But anyway, I went through this process where I felt like shit for about 2 weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks, because my body must have been, instead of getting a transfusion externally, it's naturally had to, get the levels back up. Ever since then, I've been feeling bloody fantastic. mentally, emotionally, physically. I feel fantastic. And I've just noticed though, I'm eating drastically less than I used to. And apart from my iced coffee, I'm eating a lot healthier than I normally do, a lot more raw whole foods and that kind of thing. And there's been no conscious effort like I need to diet or lose weight. I've lost about 8 kilos, but it just happened really organically. I'd love your thoughts on that. Did something happen when I was replenishing blood? Like what happened there?
You've been reactive and now you're being proactive. So the body's smarter primarily. Once the body gets out of the state of, chasing something to sort it out and has to prepare itself and deal with it, then usually the change starts to occur. So it's interesting this has happened at 37 because usually around 38, because 37, 38 is a real pivotal time for a guy. The body does change every 7 years as well. So what we used to be able to eat, what we used to be able to take, doesn't really sort of cut it as we get older primarily. So by the time you're 45, you'll go through another transition again. Certainly we're programmed to consume more than what we need to. There's no doubt about that. It's very hard to lose that attachment. We have that strong attachment to food, particularly if we're going through some trauma or we've been through something in life and our nervous system's out of whack, and we go to food to try and, ground ourselves primarily. But yeah, your body's gone through a pretty big adjustment, and it's actually like being able to self-regulate. A bit like the mind. If your mind you can train your mind to self-regulate and come down and come back to balance again, and all of a sudden it starts to work better. So if you did a live blood analysis, got a naturopath to check your blood, you'll actually see components of that blood trying to get healthier. Like your body's always trying to heal itself. But it got to the stage where, it was used to that reaction to a transfusion, and now it had to basically do its own work. So you've been probably very lucky and given a gift that actually occurred.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, it feels like a bit of a gift. And like I said, we're in the past, and not to say that, there could have been times that if I didn't have it, I might have died, but I had these blood transfusions and that, but then I'd end up with all these, other infections and other issues, and they'd, put me on, medication and that kind of thing. Whereas, yeah, this time just feels so different, and I just sort of let the body do what it needed to do. And I have had days like you this morning with the watermelon juice where it's got to like 1 or 2 o'clock in the arvo, and I'm like, oh, I just had my greens juice this morning and that's all I've had. Whereas before, man, if I got to like 9:30 in the morning and I hadn't eaten, I'm like looking around ready to kill someone, Yeah. So it's very different. So you're saying I'm in a transition in my life?
Yeah, absolutely. But really what's happened too is you've had a breakthrough, and that breakthrough has happened for a reason, so you can go back to your old way and get nowhere, or you can just keep pushing down that path, and there'll be some significant benefits that will come through physical, improvement, but also through your clarity mentally and that as well. Blood's such an amazing thing, if you can keep our blood clean, then everything works better. If it's dirty and it's got to deal with shit, then it's not a great life. But if you can look at an acid alkaline chart and look at what you're eating that's acidic and sort of move it more to the alkaline side, and you'll find your physical and mental health, that's on the other side. So that iced coffee is acidic. Yeah, so anyway, tomorrow you might want to do something different, but if you can get that balance working properly, then all of a sudden, you start to work better.
You go.
Pardon? Is that why you're playing golf so well at the moment? Because of this?
I think, yeah, even that, clarity of mind maybe as well. I'm feel peaceful and happy. I'm not getting frustrated on the course, which makes you play worse. So I think it all plays into that. Plus, losing a bit of the bulk as well might help with that. I'm not trying to muscle the ball around, but yeah, I think it all helps. So you're saying, Aaron, and I've kind of heard this before, but when the body is, I guess, trying to eliminate a lot of toxins from the blood or from wherever else in the body, then it, I suppose, doesn't have time to do a lot of the healing processes that it needs to do.
Big time, yeah. Yeah, if your body's working optimally and you've got a problem, like you've got a pimple or you've got a sore shoulder, then a lot of the healing can go to that rather than dealing with shit that's going through your digestive system, So you've been able to direct your energy to where it's needed. Mate, we've been so dumbed down with regards to what our potential is as humans because we've been really reactive. Go to the doctor, get a pill, go take this, go take that. Then you go for a drive with your car and you see a billboard saying drink piss and eat McDonald's and all that sort of stuff. So unhealthy people are good for the economy, and they want to keep you there. That's the whole cold hard truth at the end of the day, to be able to sort of, rise above that, particularly as guys, can be challenging. But if you do the work like what you did, you had a breakthrough. It's just like physical fitness or meditation. Eventually you're going to have a breakthrough. It just takes time to get going up.
With the mind and the body, it's like the work we're doing at Myndfit. We're trying to purify the mind, liberate the mind of those distortions. And when you're in when you're in your Buddha nature, loving compassion, for example, then you can heal yourself. You can heal others. You're in a position to give and flourish and thrive. And the same's happening physically. If you can purify the system, the physical system, then it's going to function better and it's going to heal better and it's going to be in a position to do more. And so same working on the mind and the body.
Big time. Yeah, we do I've been very lucky. I've learned lots of Eastern healing, traditional type stuff, and we do a meditation called Nadi Shodhana, but also another one called Sudarshan Kriya, where you're utilising both nadis in nostrils, and that really gets both hemispheres of your brain working properly. And that's what Nick's talking about, giving your mind a cleanse too, I guess, as well. That's just a technique that a lot of people can do pretty easily, but there's also the stimulation which comes from doing activities which get both sides of the brain working properly together as well.
Yeah, that's made me remember my sorry, Nick, but that's made me remember my kinesiologist used to have me do that. If we were working on something and an issue would come up that she used to say, she goes, you're all over the shop about this particular topic. And then she'd have me do that breathing air where you close one side and then go back the other way, and then we'd start to work around the topic. But she'd always get me to do that, get both hemispheres of the brain working before we move on.
Yeah, that's right. It's a great way to start the day. When we get up, it's sort of depending on what the body's had to deal with the day before and what the gut's digested the night before. When you get up, if you can do Sudarshan Kriya, it just gets the digestive system stimulated and working, but also gets the nostrils working well. So when I was a young fella, I had blocked noses all the time, sinuses, this, that, and the other. But a lot of it was to do with dairy and all the shit that I was putting in my body. But the doctor never told me that. He just kept giving me antibiotics. So I had to learn all this sort of stuff myself and say, well, no, I need to take my power back here, not outsource it. And that's what I want to try and help more guys do, be able to realise that we can be our own doctors, our own healers, all those types of things, because, a lot of it's just been outsourced and it's not our fault, basically.
Yeah.
So what's, go back to the start, because listeners are probably going, wow, this dude is talking about some cool stuff and it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm thinking that. It's great.
But go back, so this is the Woke Blokes podcast. We talk about, having our eyes open and coming into awareness and consciousness and everything. So what's your story? What's your sort of growing up? And I know a little bit, but if you want to share it with the listeners.
Yeah, mate. Very happy to. I was brought up in Horsham in country Victoria, like a little farming town. My grandfather was a wheat farmer and my uncle was a wheat farmer, and my mum come from that side of the family. My dad was from Warrnambool and he was like a fishing guy and always loved doing outdoor stuff and everything. Liked having a few beers and that too. So I was brought up in a traditional country environment. When I was 3, I was diagnosed with a brain tumour. I had to go to the Alfred Hospital, have a brain tumour ripped out of my head back in 1974 before a lot of the technology was in place. So I spent quite a bit of time in there, and they pulled a tumour out of my head, and it took a lot of time to recover from that. But I bounced back pretty well, I think. I went into traditional life of just eating what the TV told me to eat. A treat was to go to McDonald's in Ballarat when we went to Melbourne, and we get McDonald's. So we had fish and chips on a Friday night, but a lot of sugar and a lot of cakes and shit, brought up in that community. So I wanted to play sport, desperately. I loved footy and cricket, and I wanted to be good at that, but my body wasn't really doing what my mum was saying as far as, the coordination side of things because of what happened with the brain tumour. So I got a bit of shit from that at school a little bit, and I never really reacted. I never got angry because of it, but I sort of went through that system, and then went into high school. The primary school I was at was pretty good. I was a pretty popular kid, and I did some great stuff there. And got to high school, it was really just a totally different story. It was like going to war every day, primarily, and had to really, change my game a bit, like what you're saying with your blood. At 38, one of those sort of real life-changing moments in my life, but that was more reactive. I had to be reactive then, and I needed something as a young fella to get some direction. My dad was a great fella and got some good people around my family, but I never had that real solid mentor as a young guy, I don't think. So I sort of weaved my way through high school, tech school it was, like a boys' tech school, and pretty rough. But, a bit confused about what I wanted to do with my life. But one thing I really knew deep down is that my job here was to try and help people. And really the only way I could help people was to go to uni and become a doctor or a nurse or whatever, and I never really had what I saw as being the marks at school to be able to get to that stage. So when I sort of got to the end of high school, I was confused, what do I do? So I never got any direction to be able to be a heart-based individual and help others heal. And just worked my way through life, got into corporate worlds, thought that happiness would come from climbing the ladder, got to high-level CEO, and that sort of stage, and made a lot of money for a lot of people. Was consistently burning myself out. If I wasn't at work, I was thinking about work all the time. I'd go to bed. That'd be the last thing that I'd think about. When I'd wake up 2 or 3 hours later because my body was needing a piss or whatever because it was unhealthy, then I'll be thinking about work again. I was just in this constant cycle. And I got made redundant in about 2008 or 9, and I really was close to suicide. I thought, this is bullshit. This life, what I've been sort of working towards is not making me happy at all. It's taking me away from my real alignment, that true self which I sort of had when I was a little fella, but I never really had the ability to be able to tap into that. So I basically ended up going to a GP and asking, what do I do? I'm really lost here. I wasn't getting any support from my employer, and redundancy come from that too. And that was due to the global financial crisis primarily, but it was the second redundancy I'd had in about 3 or 4 years. So I'd got a real kick in the guts, and my level of self-esteem had probably dropped quite a bit, and my level of self-worth had dropped quite a bit. So I had 2 kids and a wife, and I just thought my whole role was just to be a contributor to keep feeding money in, and I just lost my sense of self. So it got me to a stage where I felt worthless, and I was going to, take my life possibly. And I went to the doctor, and he said, you can do 2 things. You can take pills or exercise. So I was so blessed that I got that option. When I got home that night, there was a flyer in the mailbox. We lived like out of town, so you never got junk mail. There's a flyer in the mailbox saying the first 24-hour gym in Australia was going to open in Hobart, where I lived. So I rang them. I got a membership. I waited, and I joined. And I used to get there at 4 a.m. and just work myself hard. I was never the coordinated fit person, but over time I developed a program for myself. Over time I just changed my physical body. 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months. Within 2 years, I was incredibly fit. I was training the Tasmanian cricket team around strength and conditioning and that type of thing. So people saw in me someone that was, just able to do some unbelievable athletic pursuits, because I actually taught myself to do things differently. I taught my brain to work better by riding backwards. I taught my brain to work better by using my other hands more, and got that part of me which had been dormant for so long working again. And just through that hard work, it opened up doors for me. The doors that I really needed to be open when I was back in high school. So, things started to evolve and transform. And, I sort of was out running one day. I was starting to do pretty incredible athletic pursuits. we talk about the ego. That was the ego driving me, to sort of prove myself, which I hadn't been able to do as a young fella. People were seeing the great things I was doing. I was getting lots of accolades, but deep down, I wasn't really nourished. So I looked at what I needed to do to settle my mind down and just get connected again without having to put my body through hell. And that was to go to the Buddhist Centre. So I went to the Buddhist Centre in Hobart, and they welcomed me really with open arms, and could see where I was at. And I started to do some work with them and started to learn more about the mind, and started to had to go through some serious challenges there to be able to confront a lot of the trauma that I might have been through, and then heal from the inside out. And that was sitting in cold rooms, freezing during meditation and really making myself uncomfortable. But being able to move through that discomfort like I did with the fitness, I knew I could get through that. So that was a bit of a game changer for me. Talking about game changer, one day when I was out running, I realised that a lot of my poor health came from what I was being exposed to through what I loved, being cricket and football, through the junk food and the booze advertising and so forth. So I went home. I had 2 kids, and I went home and my kids were watching the one-day cricket, and I could just see what was getting advertised around the boundary. I'm thinking, that's exactly what happened to me, except it was cigarettes back in the old days and all that. So I wrote a letter to a mob in Canberra and explained, my frustration with this. Within a moment, they'd responded. Within probably a week, I was on every commercial TV channel in Australia about, my concern with the issue. I put a billboard up at Hobart Airport. I've got a photo of a kid. This is down the track a little bit. With a hamburger and a beer, saying, "What is Cricket Australia trying to sell your family?" And
That's awesome.
That went viral. It went around the world, So I was interviewed by Current Affair and all the main channels and shows and that. And I started to get some real traction with it. People were starting to think, "Well, yeah, this is bullshit." So I got invited to Parliament House in Canberra. The Greens were massaging me quite a bit, so I was very close to joining the Greens as a leader in Tasmania. And I just woke up. I just thought, fucking, this is bullshit. They're just playing the game. I'm trying to change the game here. I'm not going to get involved in this world and just keep going around in the soup, where I can actually do something with some autonomy to help people realise, what we've been programmed to do, and that's what's causing poor health, and that's what's causing poor mental health and so forth as well. So, as I mentioned before, unhealthy people are good for the economy, and we've got to ask about. So from there, I became a health advisor for the Tasmanian government to work on well-being with them. This is someone that come through a tech school, mind you, and was confused as an 18-year-old with what I was going to do with my life. So I had a passion to try and bring well-being into the workplace. With previously what I've done, I've worked in labour hire and recruitment, so I ran lots of large teams of men through projects all throughout Australia. So that was what was causing my stress and that as an individual, but I never picked that up. So I'd awoken through all that and worked within the government system and did some really good stuff, but just got blocked by the bureaucracy, So I left that and become a yoga teacher, and haven't looked back since. Primarily, that was 2017. So I quit a big salary. Wanted to find out more about myself. Went into yoga, went into various aspects of learning from some really connected and conscious people, more from the Eastern side of things, and that really helped me sort of get an awareness around myself, but also my role in this lifetime, what I'm here for, and I think we've all got a role here. We just need to actually find out what that is, and that took me to diving into the uncomfortable part of me, which was more about love and compassion, and gratitude and kindness. I could have kept pushing down the fitness realm and doing lots of chin-ups and all that shit, but really that's not important. I could do some unbelievable things athletically, but wasn't really doing much for my soul at the end of the day. I need to do some work on my soul and help that. get connected again, or me get connected with that, so I can actually live the rest of this life a bit more, I suppose, purposefully rather than unpurposefully, And I believe a lot of the make-believe world that we're sort of consumed in takes us away from our hearts. It really does. And the corporate stuff is amazing. I mentioned to you guys before about not being vaccinated. I can't go and do some of the work that I was doing, possibly because of that. But my soul's sort of saying, look, you need to stay true to that. If I had went the other way, I'd be a little bit out of alignment. So yeah, it's been a journey of a real transformation. Nothing you'll learn in a book. It will come from hard work. I believe as a man and as individuals, we've got to put the time into ourselves. We've got to put time into our well-being. Otherwise, our well-being can go the other way quite quickly. Then we need to look to outsource that.
And where'd the Outback Mind come into your story, mate?
So when I went back, 2007, I went to become a yoga teacher. My wife and I split up a couple of years before that. My dad was really unwell back in Victoria, so I was in Hobart. I decided I needed to go back to be around him. When I went back, there was lots of issues with male suicide and guys like I used to be back in the day, still eating the meat pies and drinking the beer and going to the footy, but they're all having problems. Like on the outside looking great, but on the inside, really shy. So I had people come to me don't tell anyone, but I've got this going on, So there was lots of that, and I thought, well, I need to do something to help guys, mental health in regional Australia. Within that particular region, I started to run men's circles there, and that I was doing a bit of that in Tassie as well. And so I did a few guys along there. They were very guarded, but that sort of started to evolve. One method I used was going to the football clubs and speaking, and through that, I went and started to teach them yoga. I said, okay, I can help you feel calm, but we're going to do some yoga instead of teaching you to meditate. So one club I worked with, farmers, all that, very talented footballers too, taught them how to slow their mind down through their bodies. Throughout that whole year, they never had an injury. They won the premiership, undefeated. Another club, netballers, they got me in. They'd lost the previous 3 or 4 grand finals by a small margin. 3 months out from the grand final, I taught them how to slow their mind down. They won the grand final that year. So within that community, I got a lot of fanfare with regards to my own journey, but also what meditation and yoga could do for mental well-being. And that's how the Outback Mind started primarily, to be able to help people be empowered rather than disempowered. To try and show people that there's another way rather than looking outside yourself when all the answers are within yourself, as well. And that's something I'm pretty passionate about. And I want to try and do more of that, particularly in regional areas, because we need the support out here. That the whole model is reactive. The whole mental health space is really reactive. We can teach people tools to be proactive. Then I reckon we can really help turn the place around.
It's a good idea. I might look at taking a proactive approach with mental health.
Well, we use the analogy, it's like when it comes to mental health, if you think of it like it's our car, then people generally roll into the mechanics with the doors hanging off the thing. It's on fucking 3 wheels. The windows are smashed. Whereas if we took a more proactive approach, like getting our car regularly looked at and serviced, then we wouldn't have it end up in that situation. That's what happens so much with mental health now. It's people are literally past their breaking point before they reach out and go, I need help. And I mean, the proactive approach is going to be so important moving forward as a country. I think if we're going to start to get on top of this issue and manage it a lot better.
Big time, mate. I read a thing on LinkedIn yesterday from a CEO of a large company saying, excuse me for saying this, but I feel absolutely fucked. This is wrong, that's wrong. And she got hundreds of thousands of likes and whatever. But I sent a message off to her and I said, look, has anyone actually taught you how to manage your nervous system? She said, nah. So yeah. So
but we don't get a manual, do we? Don't when we're born, we don't get a little booklet saying how to manage your nervous system, but ideally we would, wouldn't we? And I guess that's what you're teaching the adults now who never got that training.
Oh, mate, we all have it. You know, we've been brought into this life to be a performer, to be a contributor to the economy primarily. You know, we haven't really been taught how to understand ourselves and all the stuff that's actually really our gifts at the end of the day. All those gifts have been taken away from us from the pathways we've been educated towards. You know, it's all about disempowerment, I guess.
You spoke about early when you were talking about your story, which is a bloody amazing story, by the way, Aaron. I think it's fantastic. I think the work that you're doing is very, very important as well. One thing you mentioned early on was just the topic of mentors. I'd love maybe your opinion around, especially for guys, you know, a lot of guys obviously listening to our show. What's the role or the importance of having solid mentors for kids, but also I think, you know, for us adults who never quite got the mentor that we needed when we were younger?
Yeah, it's to be able to be vulnerable enough to allow it to come for someone or some individuals to come into your life, because we think as men we've got all the answers, whereas we haven't. You know, and you'll have an opinion on someone else's opinion and all that sort of stuff, and that's the first thing you got to let go of. Maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I need some guidance and support. And it's the ones that are really open to that are the ones that actually start to transform and succeed. And I've had my battles with that too, you know, over the years, because the male ego will come in and try and disrupt that and protect it. But yeah, you've just got to be open enough to be able to let go and have people come into your lives for the right reasons that can actually help create things for you, you know. Yeah, because a lot of us have been trained and educated to fend for ourselves. And go back to my story of, you know, being at school and having to go to war every day. It was all about defence, defending your well-being and fucking fighting and all that sort of shit, you know. So for someone to actually reach out and get a mentor or have someone invited into their lives that can support them, I think it's really important, because a lot of us haven't got probably good father figures that have been able to give us the guidance that we've probably needed. It's very rare. I very rarely come across a guy that said, I've had a great childhood because my dad was so supportive and this, that, and the other. 9 out of 10 have had, you know, pretty mixed up, you know, journeys, I guess, at the end of the day.
Ryan and I also talk about the transitioning from childhood into adulthood for blokes, going on that journey and you know, going out and killing a bear with our bare hands after spending
yeah.
It's for me, I experienced that through going on Outward Bound for 22 days out in the Brindabella Ranges outside of Canberra, and so I was very fortunate to have that experience. But do you think enough is being done? Well, I know you don't think enough's being done, but you know, how can we get more blokes to help kids? And I use the adage, we can't help others unless we're okay. So I guess the work needs to be done on stabilising men and empowering men and getting men accountable to themselves, looking after their own health and well-being. And then when they're in a position, we can start grabbing the young guys and getting around them and helping to build strong, healthy adolescent men, I suppose.
Well, we've got to have recognition from the powers that be that that's needed. You know, all the traditional cultures have that. You know, that's
rites of passage.
Yeah. So, we don't recognise that. You know, it's school, uni, bang, you're into life. We don't have any transitional practices which actually help give us that guidance. My philosophy, what I'd love to be able to do, I'm setting up the Outback Mind as a foundation, so that's sort of in the process at the moment. But for me to be able to get funding enough to be able to look at pulling guys in from certain areas and say, okay, we're going to do this 22-day thing, but after that 22-day thing, I'm not going to leave you on your own. I'm going to keep you supported and mentored, and you're going to be part of something. Because really, all we want as humans is to feel community. We need that. We need to feel love and compassion and support. A lot of us haven't got that. I've just spent the last 6 months doing some work in prisons, and mate, all those guys in there, geez, they don't need to be there, or not all of them, but most of them. They're just been scared little boys that have, you know, fucked up and been punished for that. It's no different than the guy that's going to work every day and then punishing himself at night. You know, to be able to give him skills so he can learn some compassion for himself and feel the ability to be able to get that compassion from someone else, you know, without any barriers, I think it's really important, you know, and we just haven't had the chance to to step into that space, a lot of us, to be vulnerable. And that's what it takes. It takes time to be able to go away, get away from your stimulation in your environments, and to be able to come into an environment of love and support and capacity building, to be able to go and learn things you've never learned before, so you're not worrying about the past or the future as much, but also to come out of that and be supported. I think that's really important. So I'd like to see mental health money go into that model rather than the reactive model that we're currently in.
Yeah, that's me and Nick bring this up a bit. It's like there'll be an announcement. Yeah, we're going to put X amount more $1 million into the mental health care system. And most people think, oh, that's a great thing. But if the money's going to the same shit that it's always gone to, but it's going to get more of the same results. So we need some different options. I'd love you brought up a couple of... You go, Nick. You go.
If we could get $20 million to pump into our 40 acres outside of Agnes, Aaron, we could set it up, dorms. We could, can we lobby the government for that and just sort of bring dudes there for 22 days?
Maybe we've got some listeners. Maybe we've got some rich Icelandians who want to donate some money for this lovely cause. Please reach out to us.
The first thing there is to actually understand that those roles are so disconnected from their souls. They're the ones that actually need this work first and foremost, so they can see the value in it. I've come across so many broken high-level executives, so many broken politicians and that have just gone through this system of private school into uni, into the workforce, and just they've been on all the time. Eventually their nervous system, breaks down, like that lady yesterday. This is what we've got to do. We've got to start getting those people that are making decisions to do this sort of work.
Well, for me, in
so
the
they
nutshell,
can understand.
Oh, sorry, mate. There was just a bit of a lag there. I didn't mean to break in on you there.
You're right.
I think for me, the focus has been heavily geared towards IQ, and I think there needs to be a massive shift and switched over to EQ. And there's still so many people that don't even know what emotional intelligence is. They don't know what it does. They don't know how important it is. And everything we're talking about, the nervous system, the self-managing, all of that is EQ. So if we could, that's what Myndfit's all about, is developing people's EQs. So if we can create programs and courses and school and take that proactive EQ model to the public, and it's not therapy, it actually reduces the need for traditional therapy and whatnot. If we can take that out there, then all of a sudden there's healthier dads, and there's healthier sons, and there's healthier sons in relationships, and there's healthier families, and there's healthier it just spreads.
But it takes and Aaron's brought this up a couple of times, but that then takes such a radically different view and system that we have now, because a less of a need for traditional therapy.
We're outside of the system.
No, that's right. But a less of a need for traditional therapy also means a less of a need for medication. But like that return customer, whether it's medication or standard types of therapy and everything, are kind of a large part of the wheels of the current economy. So you're right, a parallel system would have to be built as opposed to fighting the existing one.
A big thing is people don't understand it's supply and demand. If the demand's not there, there's no supply. So we're creating that parallel system. People who come to Myndfit, it's all self-funded. There's no kickbacks or rebates or funding for this. People are digging into their own pockets and forking out for their own health and well-being. And we're booked up till bloody August. And that's because people see the logic in it. They see the sense in it, and they go, right, this 90% of our clients have been through the current mental health system or healthcare system, and have had such an aversion to it that they are prepared to pay out of their own pocket, for this stuff.
But wouldn't we love to get to a place where instead of it being the last point of call, it's the first point of call for a lot of people? Instead of going the traditional, they're going that way.
It's interesting as well, though, because one thing creates the other. So without having been through that and learning how ineffective it is, they wouldn't come searching for this. So it's the necessary evil, perhaps. If we didn't have a if we didn't have a shitty, inadequate system, people wouldn't go, oh my God, the work that Centre for Healing and Myndfit and all these things, that they wouldn't see that as so attractive.
Yeah, interesting. Like the whole model is based around fear, force, and control. as you know. And while we've got pharmaceutical industries dominating and dictating all these decision makers, which are only really self-interested about keeping their roles and keeping their salaries and all those sorts of things, that's where we've got to have compassion, because at the end of the day, they are scared individuals underneath. They're not connected to their hearts or their souls, they're connected to their egos. And eventually that will change. I believe it will. You know, we're on this earth at the moment for this reason. I really believe that, you know. We're having this conversation today because, you know, we've got higher levels of awareness. And I see that level of awareness that they're in with compassion. I was at a forum the other week in bloody Rockhampton where I saw the health minister on the stage with a suit on, crossing his legs, and he wasn't much younger than I was. And I'm thinking, mate, you've got a lot of work to do on yourself. You know, got a lot of work to do on yourself. Yeah.
I think the more that we look at the other system, the more time and energy that we spend on, you know, fighting big pharma or whatever, I think we're taking time and energy away from creating and constructing. So for me personally, I just accept that it's there. I understand it's there. And I always go back to permaculture because I just love what David Holmgren did. He saw monoculture. He saw, you know, one plant in one paddock, and he saw the effect that was having, and he went, okay, that exists. It's not healthy. It's not sustainable. So I'm going to look at what I can create. And I really feel connected to we're doing the same thing, just in a different industry. You know, that's the farming industry or in the health industry. He wasn't fighting the farming industry or trying to holding up placards or picketing or anything. He just went, what can I channel my energy and effort into? And it's creating a better system. And you know, and then that will become so attractive that the other system just crumbles of its own because there's no necessity for it anymore.
Yes, yeah. Lots of people are saying that that they're really hanging on by a thread at the moment with regards to keeping that. A lot of the systems that we've been in don't work, and people are starting to realise that now, you know. So there is a bit of an awakening to the other way, you know. And yeah, you're right. I'm really grateful you said that because, the more time we talk about the stuff that doesn't work, we can put time into the stuff that actually does.
Let's talk about something that does then. I reckon it'd be nice to talk about, you brought it up a couple of times, and that's Nick, how you met Aaron was at a men's circle. I'm sure of a lot of our listeners, a very small percentage have been to a men's circle. The vast majority have either never heard of it or heard of it and not been to one. I'd love to know, Aaron, what is the purpose of those and how do they kind of run?
Yeah, thanks. Certainly an open forum. You know, when you go to the pub, you have a beer, you mask the stuff, don't you? You know, you're sort of happy and lucky and all those sorts of things, and you're not really getting to a core of a deeper meaningful conversation. So this is an environment where, first and foremost, we help people, you know, feel safe for being there. They don't have to have a problem. It's just about being in a room of guys to have general conversations which can help them through their journey primarily. And if you look at rural communities in general, most guys have got masks on. You know, they find it difficult to go these sorts of things. So I want to try and create spaces that are open, that can, you know, be accepting of all, you know, to be able to provide that space where they can come along and have the ability to be able to build capacity through someone coming in like Glenn did that night and talk about the landscape or talk about a particular topic like we had in that capacity the other night. We talked about ultimately looking after yourself, you know. So bringing these new paradigms which are outside just a win session. I don't want to be there just, you know, having hard luck stories with each other. You know, these are forums where we can, you know, be compassionate and listen to that sort of stuff, but also give people tools and strategies so that they can functionally move forward out of that, you know, rather than being reactive.
I went to the men's circle in Agnes with Aaron, and there was about 15 blokes there, I think, and there was a guest speaker, Glenn Poole, who we've had on our podcast from Australian Men's Health Forum. And lots of listening, lots of engaging, talking, whatnot. People shared some stories, and it really opened up some vulnerability, which is a word we keep coming back to. But the most interesting thing for me was the next couple of days, and I haven't spoken to you about this, Aaron, because I wanted to wait. But the next day, I went to a cafe, and George was there. George is the host of Super Woo Radio, and he's an interesting cat. And all of a sudden, George was sitting there with another guy next to us at this cafe, and we had a big embrace and a hug, and hey, how are you? And he's like, yeah, we can't wait to get you on my podcast, and da da da. And then the next day, I was at a cafe at the caravan park, and I was just sitting in a corner, and I observed a young paramedic guy who was there. He met up with another guy that was there, and they were having some cool conversations. And then we were out having dinner, obviously, and Steve comes past, and we end up having a couple of conversations, and Pete, I think it was, also dropped past, and we end up having these conversations, and so just from this one evening, there was these 3 incidents where all of a sudden there's connection. There's a hug, there's a chat, there's a laugh. So the ripple effect of that night was amazing just to observe it.
Yeah, thanks. It's certainly about creating community, primarily, and connection. That's really what it's all about. There's one guy that's been coming there regularly. He's had lots of issues. He's 67, and the time before you were there, he had a massive breakthrough, and ever since then, he's just actually been awoken. I really believe he's been awoken, and he's just happy. He's talking, having conversations with these guys regularly. And, he's starting to do things which are, creating things for him rather than being stuck between his ears and, worrying about the past so much, So yeah, that's what I want to be able to do, to be able to duplicate that into other areas, because I know it's needed in small places like Agnes, throughout the country, to be able to get the right people to run these forums without any ego, because once you actually understand that we're all connected from the heart, you can provide space where they feel safe and they can start to do exactly what you said. Feel supported and get out there and start to share that within the community, and that's what transforms.
And imagine the ripple effect from that day. Like, the 3 days afterwards, they're catching up outside of those circles. They're getting more engaged, deepening their connections. You're walking down the street, go mate over there, and your little son goes, oh, who's that, Dad? Oh, that's such and such from the men's circle. What's the men's circle? Oh, that's where we go to talk and open up about things. Oh, can I come? Sure, yeah, why not? And all of a sudden, it's just this, it has this very unseen ripple effect, which is so important.
I think the most the person who got the most out of that night that you're at was the guest speaker, primarily because he's quite guarded in many ways, but he actually was able to open up, and since then he's actually got these connections with people which he would never have even known or acknowledged primarily. So it's being able to break down all barriers, titles, races, beliefs, whatever, to be able to come to a forum and then just let's just let go here and just see what happens.
And that was the beauty of it. It was just, we're all just human beings. We weren't a painter or a chippy or a therapist or this or that. All the labels came off. All the labels come off, and I'm just Nick. I'm Nick, and I'm a human being.
That's right. Yeah. Where I'm from, it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Classic.
It was always, what do you do? Yeah.
What do you do for a living? What do you do for a living?
Living the dream. Living the dream. Yeah.
How much money you got?
Got a massive house and 16 boats and 42 cars. And
I'm so happy. I promise. I'm happy as.
That's it.
Oh, it's funny.
How do you, when you describe that, Aaron, the one, maybe block or hard thing I can see is, if those groups will be to running all around the country, you said as long as they're run by heart-centered people, right? Because I've seen a lot of different groups. I used to be a drug addict and go to NA and AA meetings, all that kind of stuff. And whatever structure you have for some sort of meeting, it's dependent on who's running it and their energy as to how it goes. And that varies greatly depending on who it is. How do you perceive? Do you think that's going to be a challenge, or how do you perceive tackling that if you were, to envision this being a thing happening all around the country?
Potentially, yeah. I want to be able to raise enough money to pay people to do this, but also to pay people that can bring things to it, bring ideas and bring that sense of connection to it. So to be able to, I'm in a good way and a bad way, I've been fortunate to be able to work around a lot of people and interview a lot of people and be involved in that recruitment space a lot of my working life. So to be able to get to the core of someone really quickly is probably a skill that I have. So to be able to know whether I'm being bullshitted to or whether I'm being spoken to for the right reasons. If someone comes to me and said they want to be part of this, why? And then we sort of unpack that. And if they are able to, give us what we need to be able to not only support their ego, but to support that community, then we've got the right fit. We're not just plugging a hole. This is the mental health system in its essence. Plug a hole with a qualification. Don't worry about it from the perspective of actually trying to make a difference. We just need to fill an area of compliance. So I don't want to be like that. I want to be more of, okay, we're doing this for the reasons which are so much greater than ourselves.
It makes me think when I first got into the industry and we were helping drug addicts and alcoholics, and we went along to one of the local meetings. We'd only been open a few weeks, me and my partner Melissa, and we went to this meeting, and it was around the PHN who give out the funding to different institutions. And we were there, everyone in the industry, 20, 30, 40 years, and I'm just asking questions, no preconceived ideas. And I'm like, well, so what are the outcome metrics that dictate you getting funding and that kind of thing? They're like, what? I'm like, what are the measurements? He goes, no, we get funding on people through the door. So as long as we have everyone with the correct qualifications and we tick all the OH&S stuff, as long as it's just the amount of people through the door. I'm like, so it's not based on outcomes. They're like, no. And I walked away going, this is fucking crazy. This is just banal. But everyone in that system, it was perfectly normalized to them. That's how things ran. But I think we need to move away from that and start to work out what's going to bloody get the outcomes, not tick all the boxes that the government want ticked.
Yes, 100%, mate. I've been in that environment. That's why I moved up here to do one of those roles. We were governed by the PHN, and not much of a shit was given to the outcomes or the individuals. What we're doing was just all about continuing the funding and be able to get your star rating or whatever it may be, So it's wrong, mate. It really isn't. And we don't want to give energy to this negative shit, as Nick said before. But that's the problem. And I believe we just need to be able to have conversations like this to be able to work towards the solutions without ego, without I'm doing this and I'm going to get this from it. I'm doing this because it's needed.
Well, yeah, it'd be nice to move away from it being a transactional experience, and I'm going to do this in order to get this. So. Yeah. I want to talk to you outside of this because I think there's definitely a room for a collaboration in some way. But I think something that sticks out with me was when what's her name, Christine Morgan, CEO of the Australian Mental Health Commission and the Suicide Prevention Advisor to the PM. She was going around Australia to doing these town hall meetings, and her department got in touch with me and invited us down there to have a chat, and then we sat in and listened to the town hall meeting, and I took some clients down with me because I wanted to gauge their understanding on it, and we walked away and all we heard was a room full of people saying, you aren't doing enough for us, you're failing us. There was this deep sense of entitlement there. There was this deep sense of, it was completely codependent. It is, you're not doing enough for us, the government's fucked, this and that. And there was people that were genuinely codependent due to severe health issues and weren't able to sort of look after themselves. But in general, there was just a lot of complaining, whinging, whining. So, we can look at the system, but I really want to shine the light on the individuals as well and the people in the community and say, you have to get up and get your ass to one of these men's circles. You have to get up and ring a Nick or a Ryan. You have to get up and you actually have to be a part of your own experience to coming back into that alignment that we talk about, to actually being well, and not just talking about well-being, but actually being well.
Yes, yeah, that's right, mate. It's amazing. Imagine the guy that's overweight. If he come to me and I said, "Okay, let's just eat watermelons for a couple of days," we're talking about how much better he'd feel. But he's not getting that information out there, is he? You know, he's not getting it. So Nick, yeah, what you're saying is the you know, the information. Something comes back to me here. That government role I was doing in Tassie, right? I went to a PAC forum at the Menzies Centre about statins. The government were going to pull money from the system to try and to stop providing these high cholesterol interventions for people, you know, so they weren't going to get their rebates and that. And they were all complaining this, that and the other, and there were some officials up on the stage, and I actually said, could I please have the microphone? So I got the microphone, and I turned around and said, has anyone actually spoken to you about your diet and how that's contributing? And they all said, no, you know, and I said, well, these are some of the reasons why your blood pressure's high, you know, this, that and the other. And then those conversations started to open up, right? So they're talking about it and exploring, and then they're looking to maybe think, well, maybe I can do something a bit differently rather than looking for a pill to sort me out. So a lot of those people in that room with you that day, Nick, a lot of them would have been on medication of some sort, I would have thought. And,
but they also just weren't empowered. They weren't looking to take responsibility for their own happiness and health, which is for me where it all starts.
Yep. So let me let you in a bit of a secret, right? The Prime Minister and that particular person in that role and others that work at that level, the agenda is pretty much about keeping people what they call DDC, right? Dumb, docile and compliant. So think about that for a moment. You know, if we can keep people there, we can actually keep people controlled and in fear and, you know, second guessing all the time. We're not empowering people. The conversations we need to start having with packed town halls are about empowering an individual. Once you start to have these conversations, people start to wake up. Maybe they'll ask a question about, you know, getting off the statin medication and doing something proactive to look after themselves.
But you've got to hold up a mirror, and people don't like looking in the mirror. You've got to make change occurs when the discomfort of staying where you are becomes greater than the discomfort involved in moving. So you've got to make people uncomfortable enough to get them up out of their seats and moving in a different direction. And you know, we're talking about funding earlier. I know an organisation down here that got $2 million funding off the government. And after listening to it, I wouldn't want that $2 million because the hoops and everything that they had to jump through, the boxes they had to tick, it was tainted. You know, it was just. I'd never want to rely on government funding because it creates a codependency as well. I want to be self-sufficient as a business and an organisation.
Absolutely. Getting back to what Ryan was saying about, you know, the PHN model, you must do this. You must comply, dumb, docile, and compliant. That's why I feel compassion for people working in these roles, because they're complying, but they don't know any other way. A lot of these people are delivering these services as being disempowered themselves. You know, if you've got a disempowered individual, imagine the service delivery they're actually like giving to the client that they're dealing with. You know, they're just following. Like, get this right. When you do a mental health screen on people, they're using the same tick boxes that they were using 20 years ago. You know, the RAS.
I shared a story with all the listeners on the podcast about when I went to the GP and just to get a result from a sleep study, and within 10 minutes he tried to put me on antidepressants and you know, it was just it was an amazing experience, and I was so fortunate to sit there conscious of what was occurring and mindful and aware of what was going on. So I didn't fall into that compliance that you talk about. Actually said, no, I'm not going to do that.
But that's the thing.
What do you mean?
But that's what Aaron's been saying. Most people are kind of in that fear state and compliance. So when someone of authority says that, they go, oh, really? Should I? Okay, yep, I'll do that. And then that starts that merry-go-round, unfortunately, that people are on for years.
Yeah, but we need an element of trust. We need to trust. You know, people come in here and trust me completely. You know, they hand themselves over to this journey, And so we don't want people to stop trusting. We want to deepen our sense of trust, because anxiety can't exist when there's trust there. So, but it's learning who to trust and when to trust, I think.
That's the goal, isn't it? That's the key.
Well said.
Well said. All right, we're up on a bit over an hour, boys. This has been great. Aaron, I've really enjoyed this. This has been fantastic.
You two are best buddies. You've been mates for ages.
I know. This is, this is all. The next step would be actually in person, but this is kind of the next level of connection from Facebook friends, and then actually being in a room together would be actual connection, wouldn't it, mate?
That's true. That's where we've actually lost it as humans, haven't we? That's why we need to do the in circles. It's okay to do the online stuff, but to do the stuff where you're in a room with people and you've got that sense of energy. You know, you look at a flock of birds flowing together, they're all flowing with energy. You're not thinking about it. When you're in a room together with people, you're actually not thinking about it. You're actually like feeling the energy with what's going on. That's when things start to change and transform, So we've got to start to do more to create these spaces for ourselves so we can get that sense of connection again.
Love it.
I loved what you said in that men's group about there's something I didn't know. There are more men's sheds in Australia than McDonald's.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's so cool.
But they're all they're primarily facilitated by guys that are retired.
Yeah. All right, we can keep going, and we'll probably have to get him back.
Absolutely. Where can people get in touch with you and your work, Aaron?
The Outback Mind. So if you go outbackmind.com.au. Just have a look at the stuff on there. It's hopefully going to become the Outback Mind Foundation in the next couple of months. And
awesome.
We really need to raise some money, so we've got to look at that. And also just email support@outbackmind.com.au.
Beautiful, mate. I've absolutely loved this chat. It's been a wonderful talk. I think there'll be a round 2 for sure, Nico. I feel like we're scratching the surface with all that.
I feel we're just getting started.
Yeah.
just warming up the engine.
Yeah, just in second gear at the minute.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. I want to say a big thank you for joining us, Aaron. Thank you as always, Nico. And thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you all next week. Peace out.
Cheers.